This class is a lecture and lab class. We have lecture for about 3 hours a week. It is technically 2 hours and 50 minutes. Lecture is mandatory. I would like you to be in lecture. If you're 5 minutes late, there's traffic, I am not going to sweat it. I do like reviewing previous lectures though at the very beginning of class. And I am not going to give new content the first 5 minutes usually, unless it's a very long lecture. But please try to be on time. Now, I have PowerPoint files. They're here under lecture modules. This is where I want you to access them from. From teaching online for the past 2 years, I've found there are 50 million ways students access material. This is how I want you to access it. So, Lecture Exam 1, PowerPoint, Study Guides, and Group Problems. I'm going to click on that. So, we here have the PowerPoint. So, Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3, Chapter 5, Chapter 4, we don't go in order, and Chapter 6. So, here are the PowerPoints that I will use in class. Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3, Chapter 5, no, we do not go in order, Chapter 4, and then Chapter 6. While I lecture from these PowerPoints, I actually write a lot on the board, or try to, and I repeat myself over and over again. When I was an undergrad, we had a teacher that we said, if he repeats himself 3 times, or he writes it on the board in detail, it will be on the test. I'm the same way. I repeat over and over again what I know is going to be on the test, so it behooves you to come to class. Now, while I give it to you, I'm giving you the whole thing, not fill in the blanks like teachers used to do. It helps if you take notes alongside. Some students take notes in the PowerPoints. First PowerPoint open, they will type in here, or they will put notes down here, and that helps them organize. So I'll talk about this one in this slide. You had an anatomy, so I actually don't talk about this slide, but they add the notes in. I also draw a lot on the board, and you want to be in lecture to draw what I draw. And yes, I know you will take pictures of it and not draw it, but that still is pretty good because at least you know what I drew on the board. And I am sure there are 10 years of students with pictures of me desperately trying to get out of the way of their pictures. They take from what I write on the board. Now also in this module, we have review. This is our chapter review for chapters 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6. Chapter 3 is separate because it has a separate quiz for that. And then group problems, these are possible essay questions. I'm going to give you 5 essay questions. Here, I think 8 questions. I'll choose 5 of them. So this is all study and review material. In conclusion, we have 3 hours of lecture a week. It comes from PowerPoint files. I have study guides here, and you access them by clicking on here to go to the right module. Now, before we move on to labs, one more thing. One year I was teaching a summer school class, and this girl closed her laptop. I'm like, why'd you close your laptop? She's like, well, that was the last study guide question, so I know you're not going to ask any more questions. You're just going to talk for the next 15 minutes. And the sad thing was that she was right. I had nothing else on that lecture that was going to show up on the test. So some students actually like having the lecture test questions open and taking notes from those and answering those questions as I go. Now, one warning, these are actually to make you look at the PowerPoint files. These are not the actual test questions. They're concepts that I'm going to test you on. And again, while I said attendance is mandatory, please don't come if you're sick. I will excuse you for being sick. Our sick policy is going to change constantly, but if you have a fever, please stay home. If you have a runny nose, please stay home. If you have a positive test, definitely stay home. So the main part of our class, labs. 2 labs a week, each for 3 hours and 5 minutes, so that's 6 hours and 10 minutes. And you need to come to lab. Again, if you're sick, please don't come. That is one thing we have changed since in the last 2 years is we used to have not a forgiving sick policy. Now, don't come sick. I will forgive you, especially if it's a 5-point lab. It's not worth you coming. Now, the first 40 or so minutes, I go over the lab. And for some of the trickier labs or more confusing labs, I have the lab protocol online. So I can actually click here in it, or going over here, I have the lab protocol and study guides. So I'm going to click on the first one, So here are the lab protocols for you. Lab 2 did not need a protocol, so I didn't make a video for it. So 1, 3, 4, 5, and not all labs will have a protocol. But this will help you, and you can also look at it in lab. I'm not banning cell phone use in case you get confused. Now, I also have lab review guides. I even give you the answers. This is what I want you to get from the labs. These are what I'm going to test you on. So it's not like an anatomy test where you have 30 stations, each with 2 questions, and the question is, what is the structure? Here, you're going to be looking at concepts, you're going to be looking at data, interpreting it, there's going to be some definitions you need. So for lab 1, we're going to do something called dimensional analysis. So here are some sample problems, and I have the answer guide. For then some definitions, why we use different units. For lab 2, it's on acids and bases and buffers, so some definitions. Here's some data, like the data we'll get from it, which acid's the best one. So these are the study guides, and this is what I will ask you on for each of the tests. Now, if it's not in the study guide, I don't ask it. We're going to do experiments in groups, and labs are due 7 days after we do the lab. Some of them you actually have to do a graph and a conclusion at home, so I want to make sure you have time to actually try it and then ask me questions the next class instead of going home, getting stuck, and not being able to submit it. So for the labs that I will make you graph, I'll post the data here. So again, you access everything from the homepage. So here are the lab modules, protocols and study guides, graphing data, and then the uploads for the labs. So I want you to do the graphs on Excel. You have free Excel. Here's instructions for downloading it on your computer. That version gives you the most flexibility. So here's last year's data, and here is how you make the graph for both PCs and Macintoshes. So to limit just contact and paper, I decided that all of our labs are going to be uploaded. We will see how well that works. This is me planning in December. So here's where we're uploading the first 5 labs and lab 23A, then the second 5 labs, and so forth. So you click on the lab to upload, and for ones that have a result, I'll try to link that module here. Here's the videos here even, and instructions on what I want from the lab for you to upload. And again, you have 7 days in case something goes wrong or you're confused, so you can ask me questions. So this is the overview of the lecture and lab format of this class. Thank you.